There's a German word, Folgekosten, which actually describes aptly a concept that you might know. It means that if you buy something, then as a consequence of you having bought that certain something, you have to buy something else. So some costs come with, additional costs. In the world of photo books, it sometimes happens that I get a book and then I'm inspired to find another book. Here's a case. You might have seen the errata edition reissue of Zdeněk Tmej's The Alphabet of Spiritual Emptiness. This came out last year. My apologies to all the Czech speakers for my horrible pronunciation. And in this book I found a little bibliography pointing to some other books, one of them being Jindrich Marko's Please Buy My New Song, which had been released in the Czechoslovakia in 1967. So I went on eBay, of course, and looked for it, and there were two copies, one with the dust cover for 150 bucks, I think, and then this copy without the dust cover and these very obvious condition issues you can see here. But I think it was like $15. And since I'm a cheapskate and I'm interested in photographs and not in shiny objects, I bought this book. I don't think there's a second edition of this. I couldn't really find too much additional information about this book, but I'm actually glad I bought it. So I want to show you a little bit about this book. So it's as I said, it was released in 1967. The photographs were all older, much older in fact. If you view this in HD, you can see, you can probably read the dates and the locations of these photographs off your screen. They're ranging from about 1945 to 1948, and the photographs are taken all across Europe and in Israel. So these are photographs in Berlin, Warsaw, Prague, London, Budapest, other places, and in Israel. So Marco was, this is the German version, and there's a French version. Marco was traveling all across Europe right at the end of World War II to photograph what happened, or basically what was left behind in Europe after the war. And these are the photographs. It's quite interesting about this book. I think this book could easily be one of those books that you could see in the books about photo books, but for some reason it isn't. And of course these books are never complete. They're a selection, somewhat subjective selection, and I don't really blame the authors for making the selection. But it also means that some books never might not get the attention that they deserve, whereas other books in fact do get that attention. And I could easily see this book being just one of those books in Parbedger's The Photo Book of History and fetching way more money. But as I said, for me it's not about the money, it's really just about the photography and about these images being seen. And on my blog I wrote about how I was lacking images of photo books dealing with, the immediate past in German photography right after World War II. Of course this is not a German book, but it is a book showing sort of the aftermath, not just in Germany, but all across Europe. It's rather beautifully printed and very simply designed, as you can see. And it's a very almost depressing book, with if you understand. So this says, I'd rather be dead than a slave. These bombed out cities. And there's no difference really made in the book between any of these different countries. It's all blended together, Europe in in ruins with the victorious soldiers and the people who had to live in those ruins and get on with their lives and try to survive. This picture reminds me of a very famous Soviet photograph of a battlefield and some women looking for their loved ones on the battlefield. I forgot who took that picture, but it reminds me of that atmosphere. You see the layout is very simple but very effective, and the images are paired and set up in very smart ways without being, too much in your face. I love this spread. I mean, it's hard to say something like that, but I think this is very, very effective. Just look at this backdrop here against that backdrop. Again, very simple design, of course. And notice how the design really changes very slightly across the pages. It's not just the same setup on every spread, which also works very well. So just these little subtle design changes can introduce a lot to a photo book. This is going to be Hungary, I guess, judging from the text there. And then we're getting towards the section that shows life in Israel in the late 1940s. I think, as far as I remember, there is a book about Marco's photography in Israel, which I think is a little easier to find than this one. I would have to look this up. But I found I found this copy on eBay, so you just have to look and see what you can get if you're interested. And that's it. Notice there's, apart from the table of contents, there's no text in the book. So the photographer decided, or whoever made the book decided to go without text. So this is Please Buy My New Song by Jindrich Marco.